Tragic incident being reported from the UK. A small plane crashed at London Southend Airport, prompting a major emergency response.
Imagine this, a routine medical flight. Nothing out of the ordinary. Suddenly turns into a full-blown fireball just seconds after takeoff. Right out of Southend Airport in the UK, a luxury Beechcraft King Air crashed almost immediately after lifting off the runway, bursting into flames so intense it forced the entire airport to shut down. This wasn't just any flight. It was an emergency medevac mission meant to save lives, but it has now turned into an unfolding tragedy. But how could a high-end medical aircraft spiral out of control so quickly? And what does this really say about the hidden risks behind these life-or-death flights in Europe? Before we dive into these questions, what exactly happened in those brutal first seconds after takeoff? Seconds that changed everything. Seconds after lifting off from Southend Airport, the elegant Beechcraft B200 King Air suddenly tilted hard to the left. Witnesses say it spiraled so violently that it looked like it nearly flipped over. And then, just 2 seconds after takeoff, it slammed into the grass at the edge of the runway and exploded into a massive fireball. Flames roared high into the sky. Thick black smoke coiled over Essex. People froze, emergency alarms started screaming. And just like that, an entire airport shut down. Let's walk through exactly how those terrifying moments unfolded. It was 3:48 p.m. on July 12th. The sky over London Southend Airport was mostly clear. The Beechcraft B200, a 12-metre twin-turbo prop often used for medical evacuations, was cleared for takeoff. Now, these aren't regular commercial flights. They're fast, fitted with emergency medical gear, and built to move quickly in life-or-death situations. This particular aircraft, operated by Dutch company Zouch Aviation, had reportedly completed a successful medevac mission earlier and was preparing for a return leg. But something went wrong almost instantly. According to flight data and multiple eyewitnesses reported by Sky News and The Independent, the aircraft lifted cleanly from the runway, but instead of gaining stable altitude, it immediately banked left. That bank became sharper and more aggressive. Within seconds, it looked nearly inverted. One onlooker described it as a tilt that just kept tilting, almost like it was rolling onto its back. Another witness said, "The plane seemed to struggle to climb, then suddenly tipped left really hard. I thought it was doing an emergency maneuver, but then the wings scraped the ground." Then came the impact. The aircraft slammed into the grassy area just off the tarmac, and instantly it burst into flames. Multiple fireballs erupted. Some reported hearing what sounded like an explosion, followed by a whooshing wall of flame. Within moments, black smoke started billowing from the wreckage. One witness told CNN, "It looked like the whole plane just disintegrated. There was fire everywhere. You could feel the heat from across the car park." But here's where things get even more surreal. Some people near the departure area said they saw one of the pilots wave a few moments before the crash. It's unclear if it was a goodbye gesture or a distress signal, but that brief, terrible moment has remained with those who witnessed it. A woman at the terminal told Sky, "The pilot looked calm just before it went down. I'll never forget that." First responders were on the scene within minutes. Southend's fire crews rushed in, followed by police and ambulance teams. But despite their rapid response, the inferno made access to the wreckage extremely difficult. By 4:00 p.m., the airport had been completely shut down. All flights were suspended. Roads around the airfield were cordoned off, and every media outlet across the UK was now watching Southend Airport. At the heart of it all was this aircraft, the Beechcraft B200 Super King Air. Don't let the sleek exterior fool you. It's not just some luxury jet. This model is often retrofitted for high-risk medical missions, equipped with life support systems and a stripped-back cabin designed for trauma care. But it also carries an image of trust and technical reliability. So for it to lose control so violently, so quickly, something felt deeply wrong. Now, the big question everyone's asking is, how could a plane like this, built for speed and stability, just crash in less than 5 seconds after takeoff? Was it a mechanical failure? Or did something happen inside that cockpit? As of now, no official cause has been confirmed. The UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch has launched a full-scale probe. Zouch Aviation has issued a holding statement expressing deep sorrow and full cooperation with investigators. But even as the investigation begins, people are wondering, how could a flight that was supposed to be routine and potentially life-saving go so disastrously wrong? Keep in mind, this wasn't a huge Boeing or a decades-old prop plane. This was a modern, corporate-owned medical aircraft flown by trained professionals, taking off in daylight from a certified UK airport. So then, what failed? Was it the aircraft itself? A miscalculated takeoff weight? A mechanical glitch? Did one of the engines stall mid-ascent? Or, and here's the uncomfortable possibility, did a pilot error happen in real time in front of dozens of horrified witnesses? Behind the flight. This wasn't just a plane crash. This was a life-saving mission, cut short in seconds. And that's what makes this story hit even harder. Behind the charred wreckage at Southend Airport was a flight operating on the very edge of speed, precision, and human urgency. The Beechcraft B200 that fell out of the sky wasn't carrying holidaymakers or business execs. It was one of Europe's unsung heroes of the air. A medevac transport, flying organs, patients, and critical medical teams across the continent. At the heart of this mission was Zouch Aviation, a Dutch company that doesn't exactly follow the typical playbook. See, Zouch operates in two completely different worlds. On one hand, they run sleek, high-end private charters, ferrying executives across Europe in leather-padded comfort. On the other hand, they're a trusted name in the world of emergency medical aviation, working directly with hospitals and ambulance services to save lives. Same aircraft, completely different missions. And the Beechcraft B200, the exact model that crashed, was built for these kinds of intense dual roles. It isn't just about speed or luxury, though with twin turboprop engines, it can comfortably cruise at nearly 300 knots. What really sets it apart is its internal design. This aircraft was fitted with something called the LifePort Plus system. To break it down simply, this is basically a flying intensive care unit. There are oxygen systems, specialized stretcher setups, advanced monitoring equipment, and enough room to stabilize critical patients while airborne. Everything inside is stripped back to essentials. There's no business class, just emergency-grade medical support. But think about the pressure here. Every takeoff isn't just a flight. It's a race against death, with families waiting, surgeons prepping, and ground crews on high alert. Every second on the runway feels like a countdown you can't afford to lose. And these flights happen fast. Zouch has long-standing partnerships with groups like IAS Medical in the United Kingdom and emergency networks in Belgium and the Netherlands. They've flown out of smaller hubs like Lelystad in the Netherlands and Southend here in the UK, rushing patients to specialist hospitals like the University Medical Centre Groningen. In other words, when minutes make the difference between life and death, these planes are the bridge that gets it done. Which is why what happened at Southend hurts even more. This wasn't a private charter with people sipping champagne. According to reports by The Independent and Zouch's own official statements, there were 4 people on board, 2 experienced pilots and 2 medical professionals. One of those was a flight nurse, reportedly flying her very first mission with Zouch. Think about that, her first day on the job, part of a mission to help others, ends in unimaginable tragedy. The other medical professional had flown dozens of missions and was known in the tight-knit medevac community as a calm, collected operator. Both pilots were prepared for these difficult trips and are accustomed to the fast turnaround times and demanding nature of their jobs. Yet, within 2 seconds of lifting off, all 4 lives were lost. And now, for the tragic irony. The very airplane designed to save lives was the site of a fatal accident. The Beechcraft B200 is well known for its flexibility. It can land on shorter runways, operate from small airports, and do fast takeoffs and landings. That is why it was so extensively relied on for transplant runs, particularly in nations like the United Kingdom, where organ transportation windows are quite limited. But this crash raises an uncomfortable question. Do these critical flights, operating at such high speed under immense pressure, face extra risks, especially when taking off from smaller airports like Southend? It's easy to point at the plane itself and ask if there was a technical malfunction. But when you consider the sheer number of medical flights happening in Europe every single day, rushing between regional airfields and major hospitals, it's impossible not to wonder if enough attention is being paid to the unique dangers these crews face. Think about it. Smaller airports have fewer backup systems, less infrastructure, and often more limited runway space. Pilots have to work in tighter conditions, with quicker turnarounds, and zero room for error. And all this happens while flying missions where time isn't just money, it's life or death. So what really happened during this Southend takeoff? Was it mechanical failure that struck this plane down so quickly? Or could the very pressure of operating these emergency flights in rapid succession be part of the risk? A regional hub in the eye of a storm. Southend Airport was never designed to make national headlines. It's a modest regional hub in Essex, mainly known for holiday getaways and low-cost airlines. But in one horrifying instant, it went from a quiet departure point to the center of a firestorm, both literally and figuratively. When the Beechcraft B-200 medevac crashed just after takeoff, everything changed. The airport didn't just slow down, it went dark. All flights stopped, every runway closed, and incoming aircraft were diverted to other airports. And this wasn't a quick pause. Reports from Aerotime showed how quickly Southend's routine fell apart. Flights that were due to take off within minutes were immediately grounded. Planes that were approaching were forced to turn around and reroute elsewhere. The airport called a ground stop. Emergency teams rushed to the scene, and police blocked off major sections of the airfield. Southend quickly became a no-go zone, with travelers stranded and delayed shipments, causing business disruptions. And this wasn't just a logistical mess for airlines. Local families were waiting for flights that never left. Critical hospital transfers were thrown into chaos, and for hours the community was left watching smoke rise while fearing what might come next. You see, regional airports like Southend face a distinct set of challenges. They serve tourists coming to sunny beaches, but they also work behind the scenes in critical infrastructure, including emergency medical flights. For years, Zouch Aviation, the operator of the crashed aircraft, had used Southend for these high-speed, life-or-death operations. Their partnership talks with Southend showed a larger strategy, using smaller airports for quick turnaround medical flights. There will be less traffic, easier landings, and faster patient transfers. On paper, it made perfect sense. But the events of that crash revealed the cracks in the system. Southend has emergency response capabilities, but it is not a major international hub like Heathrow or Gatwick. According to King Air magazine, the airport handles medevac traffic but doesn't have the specialized infrastructure you'd see in larger facilities. Things like dedicated medevac gates, advanced trauma-ready terminals, or full-scale crash response units on constant standby. Local fire services had to respond, medical teams had to be rushed in, and evacuation zones were expanded across neighboring public areas. This wasn't just an aviation response, it was a full community effort. And here's where it gets interesting. Because the more you dig into how Southend functions, the more you see the quiet collaboration between air travel and ground medical services. Medevac flights are not just about pilots. They're about seamless cooperation, ambulances meeting planes, doctors coordinating flight schedules, and local hospitals preparing surgical teams before the wheels even leave the runway. Southend had been part of this vital chain, and when disaster hit, it tested every inch of that system. Aerotimes reporting highlights how Southend has been carving out a reputation in recent years as a flexible airport for specialist missions. They weren't just flying tourists to Alicante, they were part of transplant networks, organ delivery services, and rapid emergency repatriations. The crash didn't just pause holiday travel, it froze a small but crucial artery of the UK's medical response system. And here's a question worth asking. Should regional airports like Southend invest more in being ready for these high-stakes flights? Because these medevac flights are increasing, speed is becoming more critical, especially for organ transplants with viability windows that sometimes shrink to just a few hours. But are these smaller airports equipped for the split-second risks when something goes wrong? What do you think? Should there be tighter safety protocols at regional airports for emergency flights? Or is the current system already stretched too thin? Either way, Southend is now under intense scrutiny. As investigators continue piecing together what caused this tragic crash, local officials are also asking if Southend's emergency infrastructure is good enough. Will it change how regional airports operate in high-pressure situations? Will hospitals rethink which airports they partner with? And while those questions build, there's one thing we know for sure: the aftermath of this crash is far from over. Investigation and speculation. What went wrong? With 4 lives lost and a crash that sent shockwaves far beyond Southend's quiet terminals, the hunt for answers has officially begun. Right now, investigators from Essex Police and the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch are combing through every scrap of debris, every flight log, and every data point they can get their hands on. Aviation safety experts are weighing in too. And the big question is straightforward, but the answer definitely isn't. What caused a fully certified Beechcraft King Air to nosedive just seconds after takeoff? Was it a mechanical failure? Was it a pilot error? Is there something more to these high-pressure medical flights? Here's what we know so far. The King Air model, particularly the Beechcraft B200, has a long-standing reputation in aviation circles. It is a strong performer, frequently described by pilots as the reliable workhorse of charter and emergency services. But, like every other aircraft, it also has a history. According to Sky News, investigators are analysing maintenance records, and for good reason. Although King Air models have a solid reputation, there have been a few rare cases of issues with engine performance, sensor failures, and sometimes even problems just right after takeoff. Now, Zouch Aviation, the operator of the crashed aircraft, came out with a clear statement. They confirmed the aircraft was up to date with inspections, met all certification standards, and their crew had the required experience. And let's be clear, this wasn't a rookie team at the controls. Yet, within just seconds of lifting off, witnesses saw that wild left bank. Some even said the plane nearly flipped, and others described an unsettling detail: the pilots waving from the cockpit before impact. It is strange, isn't it? That split-second gesture is haunting. Was it a signal for help? Was it a final farewell? Or something else entirely? And it opens up more questions, because when it comes to medevac flights, the stakes are just higher. Pilots are not only managing the aircraft, but are also under extreme pressure. Time-critical missions, organ transport, emergency hospital transfers. These are flights where minutes can mean life or death. And with all that urgency, even small decisions in the cockpit carry massive weight. You've also got to factor in the avionics. Modern medevac-configured King Airs come fitted with advanced systems. But these systems also require precision management. Pilots juggle autopilot functions, real-time medical updates, and route changes, all while navigating airspace that is not always optimized for quick medical departures. Weather conditions on the day didn't seem extreme, according to initial reports. Clear skies, moderate wind. But even without storms, smaller airports like Southend can offer their own challenges: shorter runways, less advanced tower infrastructure, and, as we covered earlier, fewer dedicated emergency supports. The investigation is now moving to the black box data, flight cockpit voice recordings, and maintenance history. Aviation experts say this phase can take weeks or even months before solid conclusions are drawn. Zouch Aviation has already confirmed full cooperation with authorities, releasing public updates as they get them. But in the meantime, speculation is naturally going to swirl. Aviation chat rooms are already filling up with every possible theory. Some blame engine stall, others suspect incorrect flap settings, and a few raise questions about weight distribution with medical equipment on board. We're not here to push any conspiracies, but it's worth thinking about. Do these high-pressure, life-saving flights introduce extra risks? Could airport infrastructure at smaller hubs like Southend be part of the problem? Or was this just one of those rare, heartbreaking moments where a dozen tiny things lined up in the worst possible way? And that's where we leave it today. 4 incredible professionals, gone in seconds while trying to save lives. A community shaken, an airport shut down. However, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think happened? Did the pilots wave because they knew something went catastrophically wrong? Or was it an unexplainable moment in a chain of disaster? Do you think these urgent flights carry risks we're not talking about enough? Will the investigation lead to changes that actually save lives? Only time will tell.